Hello and welcome to today's podcast and video. Today I've got Chris Eyre with me, who is an RE or RS. I'm not sure what you call it, Chris.
Happy with both.
Happy with both. So religious education or religious studies teacher, and he's an expert on both GCSE and A-level. He's going to be talking to us today about how to revise GCSE RE in anticipation of the masterclass that we're holding on the 3rd of January. And this masterclass is going to be a deep dive on all of the things that we're going to cover in today's podcast. So we're going to be talking about understanding the exam specification, understanding the different assessment objectives, looking at detailed examples of how to answer questions so that you really understand what the examiners need to see to give you the marks. So have a listen today to what Chris has to say and see if you think this will be helpful for you. And the link to sign up will be beneath wherever you're watching or listening to this video and podcast. Okay, Chris, welcome back to the School Success Formula.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here again. I know lots of students have really valued what you shared in the RS A-level masterclass that we had in the club. I think it was back in September. It seems a long time ago. But they've said how useful that was. So I'm really looking forward to today's podcast and the subsequent GCSE masterclass. So Chris, just remind us a little bit about your experience of teaching RE or RS, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so I've been an RS teacher and a philosophy teacher for 25 years now, doing a lot of work at sixth form colleges and some work in secondary as well. So GCSE and A-level, and also experience as an examiner, senior examiner at GCSE and A-level. So seen quite a lot of the good and bad of getting high grades or not getting high grades, as it were, at GCSE.
Wonderful, thank you, Chris. So using all that experience you have, tell me about specifications for RE, GCSE. Specifications are so important for every subject, but what do we really need to look out for at GCSE?
I think the religious studies specifications for GCSE are quite different. So different exam boards do different things. And it's really worth getting acquainted with your specification. So you'll be doing typically 2 religions at GCSE. I think almost everyone does Christianity as one of those faiths, and then another faith as well. And there will be a perspectives or an issues paper, or in some cases, more than one issues paper. So it's a matter of knowing what does my specification look like? What will my final exams be? How long will they be? What are the styles of questions that I'm going to expect on that paper? Because they all look so different. We can briefly go into this in the masterclass, but it does take a while to go through. But having a look particularly at what the topics are, what the key words, what the key phrases are, because that is what the examiners are testing. If it's on the specification, they can reasonably expect you to have knowledge and understanding of it. So important to spend some time or to ask your teacher to take you through that specification so you know exactly what's there.
Yeah, because it's the prime source, isn't it? It's going back to the source, if you like, of what can you be asked, and if it's not in there, you basically can't be asked it, can you?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
It's your tick list, it's your checklist that you've covered everything that you need to know. But you did say to me before we started recording that some of the GCSE RE specifications have changed a bit. So what do people need to look out for there?
The changes essentially are around what we call the assessment objectives. So the assessment objectives these are the things that examiners are looking for. So typically assessment objective 1, AO1, is your knowledge and understanding. We'll go into more detail on exactly what that looks like and the masterclass. And AO2 is argument and evaluation. So there's those typically are the two things that are being looked for. There have been some slight changes by some of the boards in terms of what they're testing on different questions. So for instance, OCR used to have split questions, 6-mark questions, where there was 2 for AO1 and 4 for AO2. They've simplified so that on one paper it's AO1 and on another paper it's AO2. There's some slight changes with AQA as well. It's nothing massive or anything to get stressed about, but it's well worth having a heads up so that you know when you're in the exam, is this an AO1 or is this an AO2 question? What are examiners looking for?
Exactly. And that brings us on really to the format of the exam paper. And tell us a little bit about that and how important that is to understand.
The format typically will have shorter questions. For AQA, for instance, it goes 1, 2, 4, 5, 12. For OCR, it might go 3, 3, 6, 15. So it's building up gradually. The longer question typically is the AO2 question. On the shorter questions, one interesting thing to think about is this a points marked question, or is this a level marked question? Now, some exam boards with their 4, 5 or 6 mark questions are points marking. So they will say, we want 3 examples of, I don't know, what a Christian might understand by the idea of baptism, or what may happen in Eucharist. And you've got to give 3 points, which you would develop to get all the marks. Or some exam boards will be level marking. So they don't necessarily want 3 different things, but the examiner looks at your answer as a whole and says, is that good? Is it satisfactory? Is it limited? And they're looking at level descriptors. Now, which you are doing will affect how you write your answer and how much time you spend on your answer, because a key thing for GCSE as well is timing. And making sure you keep pace through the paper, and you don't write too much for short questions, so you've got the time at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And it's this understanding that, it helps you deliver the right kind of answer, doesn't it? And when you look at past papers, you become familiar with the format of the past papers. But linking back to what you were just saying about OCR changing things slightly, that's going to make it really important for students to look at the most recent papers to understand the structure of the exam. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Now, most papers from 2018 to 2019 will be publicly available. You can get those from an exam board website. The papers that are the resit papers, effectively, what we'll call them, so 2020 will probably be secure at this stage, but your teacher may have access to them. So it may be worth asking your teacher about the most recent copies of the paper if they're available to them.
Yeah, and they might be used for mocks and things like that, mightn't they? But
sure, yeah.
Make sure that you've seen that 2020 paper before you go and take the exam, and you understand the structure of it, like where the different mark questions are, whether they're level mark, whether they're point mark, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's really going to help you.
And exam boards on their where they have their past papers will have quite clearly, these are the changes that we've got for 2020 or 2021 to 22. So they will spell that out. It's not kept secret. It should be publicly available to you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Chris. So once you know the format of the exam, you've got to write your answers. So have you got any tips for us to make your written answers better and get more marks?
I think part of that will come down to your revision. So when you're revising for AO1, so you're revising for knowledge and understanding, it's about ensuring that for each thing that's in the specification, you've got 2 or 3 specific things that you can say about that. And the word specific, I think, is important. So specific things that you can say about, go with our earlier examples, baptism or Eucharist. And you can also point to differences. So one of the things that examiners are very keen to see, that the new GCSEs are very keen to test, is that you understand that not all Christians do the same things, believe the same things, practice the same things. Not all Muslims believe the same things. So awareness of differences. So for each point that you've got in the spec, have you got some specific things? Can you show different perspectives or different ideas on this, particularly for the slightly longer questions, where it would be very difficult to get full marks if you were just saying that all Christians thought the same way.
So it's about
having
slightly more refined and nuanced thinking.
Yes,
and
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's having things that you can revise from. It might be flashcards, it might be a mind map, or it might be that you've got notes and then you cover them and try and write things out. But whatever it is that you're doing, it's can you produce those 2 or 3 or however many things have been asked for, specific things, and produce them clearly and in order.
And what about shorter answer questions? Sometimes you see young people writing very brief answers to, say, the much shorter questions, but often that's not enough, is it? So have you got any advice there for students?
It depends. I mean, the very short RS questions where it's 1, 2, or 3 marks, then brevity is actually a good thing. If it says list 3 Christian denominations, then it does just 3 words would do it.
Okay.
For the middling kind of answers, for 4, 5, 6 mark questions, the key is development. So where it's point marked, if it says give 2 reasons why a Christian might think that Eucharist is important, there might be 1 for giving the reason. The second mark is going to be for a development, for an explanation of that reason. So the 2 points would both need development in order. So think of it as it needs to be 2 sentences rather than 1 for each of the points.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of students who get lower marks are falling down, isn't it? When they miss out the explanation or the why. It's like, when I'm working with students, I always say, what's the why? Never write anything without giving the why, because the examiner will just read it and say why. I
think the why, I think that's a really good point with the explain type questions, where we have these 4, 5, 6 mark questions where it says explain. You're right, the weaker answers will list or they'll describe. The explanation is just that extra sentence, and this is why it is important to these Christians, or this is why for Shia Muslims. It's that kind of that extra sentence.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, wonderful tips, thanks. So what about common mistakes that you see students making? We've already hinted at one there about not giving the why, but are there any other common mistakes that you see?
I think one big weakness, if you look at examiner reports at GCSE, and I'd encourage people do look at examiner reports for GCSE, that they are publicly available. Your teachers may share them with you, actually. One common thing is around technical terms and subject-specific vocabulary. So RS is some degree, sometimes it feels like you're learning a new language. You've got a range of words relating to Christianity or Islam or Buddhism that you wouldn't typically be using. And those words, particularly the words that are listed on the spec, the examiners expect you to be familiar with them. And a good short question, if for examiners who write papers, one of the easiest ways of writing short questions is to ask you what different technical terms mean.
Yes.
And one of their common comments on exam reports is there are these terms that are in the spec and people don't know what they mean. And they may not always be religious terms. They may be terms, if we think of the themes or the issues type papers, they could be terms such as cohabitation, reconciliation, or even nuclear family. So those are just 3 terms that, looking at a couple of the recent AQA examiner reports, those were terms that were shorter questions, and the examiners were surprised that few people seemed to really know what they were. And we might think, well, it's only a 2 or a 3 mark question, but every mark counts potentially.
Yeah, definitely. And
the difference between a 7 and an 8 is 1 mark ultimately at the end of the day.
So if nothing else, get hold of the spec and go through it and highlight all the key terms and learn them, know what they mean. Yeah, brilliant. That's really helpful. And it really helps you in the longer answer questions as well to have a confident grasp of this key terminology, because I know in geography, you often have to be able to write using the subject terminology to access the higher levels of marks as well.
Yes.
Is that the same in RE?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on then to longer answer questions. Have you got any tips for students to get higher marks in longer answer questions?
I think that the longer answer questions, when we've got these now new GCSE, they feel new to us, GCSE specifications that have been around for 3 or 4 years. The 2 things that are noticeably different from the older, the GCSEs that your older brothers or sisters might have done is, one, we've hinted at the demands for specific religious knowledge, I think is greater in this GCSE. And secondly, these longer questions will require a different type of answer. So we were talking before, we were recording about what we called farm answers. So in old GCSE, you would have a statement, 12 or 15 mark statement, discuss this statement. And if you did farm, for, against, a religious person thinks, my view is, you could probably get most of the marks quite easily. Now that's not going to get anywhere near most of the marks in the longer GCSEs, so in the new GCSEs. So it's the style of writing is more akin to a lawyer using evidence to present a case. So it's not this person says that, but that person says this, and I think this. It's using the whole answer to build a case, and also using religion as well, using some of the religious evidence that you've learned to build your case as well, because not all questions will appear as if they obviously require a religious answer. So for instance, I saw a question that was asking about crime and punishment, asking whether prison is effective at rehabilitating people. Now the danger is that feels like a very general question that I could answer without referring to religion, but it's a religious studies GCSE. So in building my evidence, I need to bring religion into that evidence. And one of the things that I'd look to do when we do the masterclass is show you different answers at different levels and talk about why answers are better and how to access those top levels.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really looking forward to the masterclass, and I'm hoping lots of people will be able to come because it's on the bank holiday, the 3rd of January, so everybody will be off school. So we're doing it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon as well, so hopefully that will fit in with any latter New Year festivities that people are engaging in. So yeah, it's the 3rd of January at 3 p.m, and if you'd like to join us for that, there's a link beneath this video or beneath the audio recording if you're listening to the podcast. So thank you, Chris, so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. And I hope people find it helpful. And I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lucy. Bye.